Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to deconstruct the very science of who you are, and we're going to use a landmark review in psychology as our guide.
So, let's kick things off with a really big question. Why are people so, different? I mean, what explains the huge gap between a leader like Angela Merkel, known for her steady pragmatism, and a figure like Donald Trump? Or think about the incredible journey of someone like Frederick Douglass, going from being enslaved to becoming this hugely influential abolitionist.
Well, to really answer that, we've got to move past simple labels. Modern personality science has really shifted away from those old grand theories that you couldn't really test. Instead, it gives us a practical framework that's built around 4 key questions that get right to the heart of what makes us who we are.
And our first question is the most basic one of all. What is personality actually made of? What are its core components?
The paper we're looking at gives us this fantastic way to think about this. So imagine your personality isn't just one single thing, but it's more like a car with 4 distinct systems all working together.
Okay, so the first system, that's your traits. This is like the car's fundamental design, its make and model. These are your default settings, your automatic ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. The most accepted framework for this is the Big Five. That's openness, how curious you are, conscientiousness, how organized, extroversion, how outgoing, agreeableness, how cooperative, and emotional stability, which is basically how calm and secure you tend to feel.
All right, next up are your motives. Think of this as the destination you've plugged into the car's GPS. Your motives are what you want out of life, your goals, your values, your passions. They're what give your personality a direction to go in.
Then you've got your skills. Now, this isn't about the car's design, but your ability to actually drive it. Skills are your capacities, what you can do when a situation calls for it, whether that's solving a tough problem or knowing how to comfort a friend. They're basically the tools you have in your psychological toolbox.
And this right here brings us to a really crucial distinction, the difference between traits and skills. See, a trait is your default tendency. For example, you might be naturally shy or introverted, but a skill, that's your capacity. So that very same introverted person can learn the skill of public speaking and effectively lead a meeting. It's really the difference between your automatic pilot and what you're capable of when you decide to take the controls.
And finally, we have the 4th system, your narrative identity. This is the story of all those road trips you've taken. It's how you weave together all your experiences, the good, the bad, all the turning points, into the unique story of who you are.
Okay, so we've got these 4 components, but how do they develop over a lifetime? I mean, are we basically the same person from childhood all the way to old age? Or can we really change?
This is where the research gets really interesting because it reveals what seems like a paradox. Decades of studies show that our personalities are remarkably stable, and yet at the very same time, they are constantly changing.
So let's talk about stability first. Psychologists call it rank order consistency. Now that just means that how you compare to other people tends to stay pretty much the same. So if you're the most talkative person in your group of friends right now, chances are you'll probably still be the most talkative in 10 years. And what's really interesting, as you can see from this chart, is that this consistency actually gets stronger as we get older.
But at the exact same time we're staying consistent, we're also changing in some really predictable ways. It's something called the maturity principle. So as most of us move from our teens into adulthood, we tend to become more responsible, more agreeable, and more emotionally stable. All the traits that help us handle the challenges of being a grown-up.
And of course, our own unique life experiences shape us in unique ways. A job you love can make you more conscientious. A stable, loving relationship can help you become less anxious. Heck, even traveling to another country has been shown to make people more open and more agreeable. Our lives are actively shaping who we become every day.
Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial question. If our personalities are this complex mix of stable traits and changing life experiences, how do they actually end up shaping our lives?
It's not magic. There's actually a pretty clear process. Our broad traits influence our day-to-day behaviors. For example, a student who is super conscientious is just more likely to study effectively. And those repeated behaviors over time lead to real tangible outcomes, like getting better grades. So personality shapes our destiny through the little choices we make every single day.
And because personality isn't set in stone, we can actually change it on purpose. A massive review of over 200 studies found that therapy can produce some pretty significant and lasting changes in our personality traits, especially in reducing things like anxiety and negative emotions. We're talking about a change that's big enough to be easily noticed, and it often happens way faster than you might think.
So how do we pull all of these pieces, our traits, motives, skills, and our personal story,
How do we pull that all together to really understand a complete person?
To get that full psychological picture, you can't just look at one piece of the puzzle. You absolutely have to integrate all four: their basic traits, what drives them, what they're capable of, and their life story. It's only when you put them all together that a complete person really comes into focus.
The source material points to a compelling analysis of Donald Trump by the psychologist Dan McAdams, who uses this exact framework. You start with the traits: really high extroversion, really low agreeableness. Then you add in the core motive, this unyielding drive to be the center of attention. And finally, you layer on the narrative identity. McAdams describes him as an episodic man, someone who isn't guided by a long-term story, but more by the desire to win a new battle every single day. You see, it's the combination of all these layers that creates a much richer, more nuanced understanding.
So, after looking at the components, the development, and the real-world impact of personality, what's the single biggest takeaway from all this?
I think this quote from the review's authors just captures it perfectly. The science shows us that those old, extreme views are both wrong. We aren't just helpless little ships being battered around by our environment, but we're also not these unmovable cement blocks. The truth is somewhere in that dynamic dance between the two.
And really, the most profound insight here is that personality isn't a static thing. It's a developmental journey. It is both stable and it's changeable. And that leaves us with a really powerful final thought. The science is crystal clear. Change is possible. So the real question isn't just who you are right now, but who are you becoming?